I never really mentioned this to anyone. When they ask me, like, hey, people still ask me, so how much did you get from it? Like, how much new clients did you get? And I never answered that because I've been a bit ashamed that I didn't work out. But it taught me so much how important it is to align what you do with the content you put out, with the audience you're trying to reach. So in terms of money, it was a big failure. But in terms of learning and understanding how marketing works, it's probably what led me here today.
Jens, welcome to the podcast. I'm really excited to be chatting with you today.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. You've been putting out a high quantity of really good content about everything related to newsletters, mainly newsletter growth, picking a niche, and really like the whole front to bottom, top to bottom, everything you need to know if you're doing one, interested in doing one, want to do it better, etc. So I'm excited to dive into all of that with you today.
Let's do that. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. We are recording this right at the end of 2023. And realistically, we have a lot of podcasts in the backlog. That's probably my biggest weakness right now is I'm not super fast in turnaround time between recording and publishing. But what is the big project for you in 2024? What are the projects? You have an agency, you have lots of educational products. I know you have a few newsletters you run yourself. What are like the spread of where your focus is going into next year?
So the funny thing is most of 2023, I haven't been doing much. So one other thing that I'm talking about a lot on Twitter and my newsletter is mental health. I've been having depression, anxiety several times during the last 10 years. And I actually just got out of the last stint where I had like severe anxiety, couldn't do very much. So basically up until 2 months ago, that's when I got out of maybe 6-7 months of feeling really, really shitty, not being able to do much. So after those, like the last 2 months, I had this, like, first of all, I really wanted to do everything. I really wanted to have a lot of ideas, but when you are in that place, or at least when I am in that place, I can't focus. I can't come up with any ideas. I definitely can't sit down and do the work. So when I got out of that, and I'm not really sure about how I did that, I just had this mountain of energy. Like I went from not even being able to get out of bed to just sitting down the entire day, just coming up with ideas, implementing them, creating new websites, everything like that. So the last 2 months been really intense, but also quite confusing because at the same time as I'm putting out all these projects, all the content, I'm trying to make sense of it all, trying to boil it down to one concept, one topic. So the one thing I'm working on for next year, the first thing that is going to be put in action is my cohort. So I'll be running a cohort for anywhere between 20 to 50 people. And it will focus on newsletter growth and monetization. But the big difference from most of the content you see around those two topics is this is not going to be like the hustling, hacking kind of growth and monetization. I want to help people take a step back and first and foremost think about, like, why do I want to do this? People get caught so easily in the, I want to grow my newsletter to 10K subscribers. And they are using like paid acquisition. They are using recommendations, the Spark Loop, all of those platforms that have been growing for the last year, 2 years. And most people, or most newsletter operators, are so caught up in that they believe the only way to grow the newsletter is to do swaps, paid recommendations, referrals. And they, at the same time, believe the only way to monetize your newsletter is to first grow it to 5 or 10,000 subscribers, and then start charging for ads or sponsorships. So basically, that's what 95% of newsletter operators believe the path to monetizing your newsletter is. Ads, it's going to be so much harder during the next year to monetize your newsletter using ads, because it's been exploding in 2023, because people's been like throwing money, companies been throwing money at newsletters, trying to get cheap, easy eyes on their product. But now they're taking a step back, looking at the result, and I'm guessing most of them will realize it's not that easy. It's not about buying ads in the biggest newsletters. It's about finding the newsletters aligning with your product and where the newsletters your audience is already reading. It's so much more work than just throwing money at a newsletter, hoping to get clicks, hoping to get people to convert. So that's where most people are right now. So in my cohort, and what I'm trying to talk about in my content, is the other way of growing and monetizing your newsletter. So you don't have to wait till you have 5 or 10,000 subscribers to start monetizing your newsletter. You should and can have a system in place that would let you monetize your newsletter from the very first subscriber. Even before you send the first issue, the newsletter issue, you can have a system in place that will convert subscribers into customers. So that's the core of what I'm trying to talk about, what I'm trying to teach people and help people do. And at the same time, help them to get out of this like constant chase for the next growth hack, the next trick, the next trend. So to build a business with the help of your newsletter, rather than having the newsletter as the sole business.
What is the current business that you're running in addition to what you plan to launch? So you have an agency that does full service everything for newsletters, like you help people start one from scratch. What is it that you're currently doing?
So the agency is one part, and the main offer up until now has been a done for you newsletter. So if they have a newsletter already, we will take over that, or we take over the content creation, the research. Basically, you pay us, and we'll make sure that you send out our value-packed, really well-written newsletter targeting your audience every week. If you don't have a newsletter, we will create the concept together with you. And so I realized that so many companies, they want to have a newsletter. They understand the value in a newsletter, how it can help them grow, maintain the relationships, remind people that they exist, other than just sending out a quarterly new email update. This is the new features. So many companies understand that, but they don't know where to start. They don't know the best route to take, and they don't have the time. So that's what the agency offers at the moment. Either run the newsletter and improve it, or help your company create the concept, basically to connect your audience with your product through the newsletter.
Are you winding down the agency to build a product, like the educational product, or you're running them both in parallel? And what's the
yeah. They will be. I mean, I'll be running them in parallel. So it's the agency is. So I'm a little bit all over the place. I do the agency part. I help creators and entrepreneurs ghostwrite their newsletters. I do the educational courses. So basically, like you mentioned at the beginning, I help people and companies build and grow their business with the help of their newsletter. The newsletter is not the business; it's a tool to grow their business. And I do it with do-it-yourself, with the educational products. Like do it with us, where I do coaching. I help you reach the goals, or do it for you, which is the agency part. So within that topic of growing your business with your newsletter, I'm all over the scale.
How did you get into this? Like, what were you doing that led to this?
So it's a very long story. I'll give you the bullet points. I was working as a travel photographer for 10 years. I actually see one of my pictures framed. I gave it to my mom for Christmas. I was a travel photographer for 10, 12 years. At the end of that career, so at the same time, I realized later, as I kind of grew a little bit bored of the whole photo thing, because that's back in 2013 when everything started to just like AI is what everyone is talking about. 10 years ago, everyone was talking about photographs and cameras and everything. That was the big things. Everyone was taking pictures. You had Instagram, Facebook, and it was a little bit too much talk about photography to me. So I started to move away from that.
So you're saying that the photography was kind of, you're at your end of how long you could be interested in it.
Yeah. So, and during like 1 year, I was developing or creating this marketing stunt. I don't know if I have it here. No, I was creating this marketing stunt. So
these are the action figures.
Yeah. So I made 400 action figures of myself in China. And this was before 3D printing was a thing. Just when 3D printing started to like exist, people started talking about it. And I got these 400 action figures. I created like this package and this concept of like G.I. Gens or Indiana Gens. And I packaged these and I sent it out to potential customers, people I've been working with before. I recorded a YouTube video about the process and like another one for the unboxing. I sent that out, and like 1 week after I sent those out, I published the YouTube video, and it just took off. Like, you can't really compare it. If I would have done the same thing today, it wouldn't have gotten a tenth of the traction that it did back then, because now everyone are doing these like stunts or concepts or things on TikTok and YouTube. Everyone's trying to outdo each other. And luckily for me, that wasn't the thing back then. So it really took off. I had 5,000 people on my websites at any given time during like a month or two. And newspapers and were calling me, TV channels were calling me. I got called from CNN twice in one day, the New York office and the London office, and it was just completely crazy. So somewhere around there, I realized, like, first of all, how much fun it is to do these things, like to try to create a concept and reach thousands or millions of people, but also like how good I was at it. Like I coming from a background of as a photographer and also as a journalist, because before I was a photographer, I was a journalist. I knew how to craft like a headline. I knew what blog editors and newspaper editors would look for and would use as quotes or excerpts. So basically, the title I gave this project, which was something along the lines with like the craziest photographer marketing stunts ever, or something like that. Whatever that was, everyone was using those exact words. So I realized I'm pretty good at this. And as I mentioned, after that, or at the same time, basically between when I started to create this action figure until like a year later when I launched it, I realized I don't really want to do photography too much anymore. So I transitioned into doing more marketing related activities and finding customers there. The newsletter I have now is the same newsletter. I'm not sure if any of the original subscribers are still there, but I've been bringing that newsletter with me through all of these transitions, like the 10 different ideas and concepts I had during the photography career, into marketing, into newsletters, into whatever. So I've always been using a newsletter. I think I launched on MailChimp like 2006 or something like that. And it's the same newsletter I've been bringing with me. So I've always been interested. I've always seen the effect a newsletter can have on a business. What an amazing way it is to keep in touch with people, to have like a direct way of communication with them. So somewhere along that journey, I moved more and more towards newsletters and email marketing.
How much attention did that bring you in terms of business, not just
that's a funny thing, and I've never told anyone else this before. I got so much attention from this. The mistake I made was I should have capitalized on that attention. So I had thousands and thousands of people coming to my website, but my plan was to get a lot of new customers as a photographer and with a lot of new clients. But the attention that I got was mostly from people interested in how to market yourself, like interested in doing something similar to themselves. So what I should have done was to creating like a sign-up page for an upcoming book on how to market yourself as a creative, or an upcoming course. I didn't do that. I wanted to, my goal was to get new customers as a photographer. I had a lot of interest. I went to a few meetings. I went to a few like agencies or helping photographers. But at the end, I think I might have gotten like 1 or 2 jobs from that. The total cost of the project somewhere around like $8,000. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure I didn't get more than half of that back in photography jobs. So in that sense, it was a big failure. And I've never really, as I said, I never really mentioned this to anyone. When they ask me, like, hey, people still ask me, so how much did you get from it? Like, how much new clients did you get? And I never answered that because I've been a bit ashamed that I didn't work out. But it taught me so much how important it is to align what you do with the content you put out, with the audience you're trying to reach. Just look at it as a line, as like a journey where you take people step by step, and everything needs to align. So in terms of money, it was a big failure. But in terms of learning and understanding how marketing works, it's probably what led me here today.
Well, it's funny that when you reflect back on it, it didn't reveal or demonstrate any indication of if you were or weren't a really good photographer. What it did demonstrate was if you're a really good, creative marketer. And so that's what you got attention for. People are like, oh, this guy's good at marketing. So the people who wanted a good marketer, I mean, maybe you linked like a portfolio of photography work as part of like what was delivered and brought people's attention to that. But that's what the alignment exactly, like the message that communicates is I'm a really creative marketer, not I'm the world's best photographer for this circumstance.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where I started out wanting to tell people, hey, I'm the world's greatest photographer. But during that year, I realized like this is much more fun. And when everything started to like take off, I was already in another place. I already had another goal in my head. So I didn't really capitalize on the opportunities I had on the photography side. But just like you said, I moved on to the next part.
As far as the newsletters themselves, what are you currently doing that is effective at growing your list?
So I've not been actively growing my list for a month or two. I removed the automatic plugs for the tweets when your tweet reached like semi virality. You have this extra tweet underneath saying, "Hey, if you like this, subscribe to my newsletter." I've removed those, and currently I'm not focusing on growing my newsletter, which might sound really weird to a lot of people, but what I'm focusing on now is to figure out the concept, figure out like what can I give people that no one else can give them?
That's an interesting question. Do you have a hypothesis of an answer?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, what I am working on, I am growing my mailing list in one way, because I'm focusing on getting people on the wait list for my cohort.
Yeah.
So instead of posting about my newsletter, I post about the cohort, which is a really good way which I think more newsletter owners should be doing. Like it's basically like it's some kind of a lead magnet, you could say. Mm-hmm. Even if it's not, you don't get. You need to. I mean, it's a product that I will be selling, but somehow by showing them something that interests them, they can sign up for the wait list. I have the landing page, and that kind of acts like a lead magnet. And I'm using this, and as soon as someone signs up, they'll get a series of emails asking them questions, describing the concept that I will go through during this workshop, this course. And sometimes I ask people, hey, do you want to jump on like an hour-long workshop, and we just work through this for your company? We just do whatever I'm going to do in the court, because that way I will be able to like understand what the main problems are and how I can help them fix those. Like you have all. I mean, I often feel like a broken record because I'm explaining the same things over and over again, things that are completely obvious to me, but people are like doing it wrong time and time again. So at the moment, I'm focusing on creating the concept for this course, which will be following what we were talking about before. It will be about newsletter growth. It will be about newsletter monetization, but in a more sustainable approach. So it will help you monetize from the first subscriber. You won't have to fight with everyone else for the attention. You won't have to fight with everyone else for the subscribers. I believed way back, or till not so long ago, the same thing as most newsletter operators believe, the same thing, that because you don't pay for a newsletter, you don't pay to read a newsletter, to subscribe to a newsletter, so you're not really competing with other newsletters because you can be subscribed to as many newsletters as you want for free. Mm-hmm. So that's not a competition. I believe it is a competition, because even though it's free to sign up for a newsletter, it costs time, costs energy, focus from the people subscribed to it. They can't read 100 newsletters per day. And more people are doing like a purge, like unsubscribing from tons of newsletters because they're just tired. Mm-hmm. So you, as a newsletter owner, you need to find, I like to call it your island. Like, instead of fighting, I heard this the other day, instead of fighting for your spot on the crowded beach, go and build your own island. So instead of trying to like fight for the attention with everyone else, just sending subscribers back and forth in these recommendation schemes and like referral tactics, find the one thing you can give them that no one else can. So like, most people know who they are, who they are serving, like their niche, at least in a very broad way. Like for me, it's let's say newsletter owners. Mm-hmm. And most people know what they want to help them with, like to grow your newsletter or to monetize your newsletter. What very few people define is your signature. Like, what do you do different than all the other people doing the same two things? Like, they have the same audience, they have the same problem they solve, but how do you do that in a different way? So for me, it's what we're talking about before. I want to help people monetize their newsletter from subscriber one, and I want to help them build a system like a flywheel that will be, there'll be a lot of work in the beginning where you create like I have this two-part welcome sequence where you start off with 5 to 7 days pure value. You're not pitching anything. You basically solve a problem for your audience, for anyone who subscribes, and that's it. After those 5 days or 7 days, you've given them massive amount of value. Like you really help them to solve a problem or to take the next step. At the end of that sequence, you ask them like, hey, if you like this one, I'd love to talk more about this thing. I would love to teach you more about this thing. And they have an option to like click, sure, let's do it. So if they don't click that, they will just be added to your weekly newsletter. If they click it, they've basically given you permission to pitch them something or to talk to them about something else. Most welcome sequences, like the good ones, where you have like 5-7 days of emails, and there's an automated pitch at the end, like you pitch a product. To me, it's people expect that. So during this entire 5 or 7 days, they are waiting for this pitch to happen. Like I know that everything that's going on now, the value I'm giving, he will ask me for something at the end. So by being really open in the beginning, say, hey, during the next 7 days, I'm going to talk about this. And I won't sell you anything. I won't pitch anything. I won't sell you anything. There will just be value. And you keep that. Then at the end, like I said, you ask them, would you like to continue? Do you want to know more about this? If they click yes, you send the other welcome sequence where you keep giving them value. But at the end, you start mentioning a way for them to, like a shortcut, a way for them to get this massive amount of value through one of your products. And because you ask them during the first week if they allow you to talk more about this, to go on, they are much more open to listen to what you have to say about your product. I am completely lost where we started off, what the question was, but that I would say I think we're talking about my focus, right? Which is, as you see, all over the place. So that's where I'm putting my focus at the moment, what I'm trying to work on.
I think the answer to this question is going to be what you just said. I think I was going to ask what the most fun part of what you're currently doing for you is. And I think it is a lot of the strategy and thinking and the distillation. It's just like coming up with actually understanding what you can do differently, thinking about in an intellectual, theoretical sense, like this is what works, then also like translating that into practical guides for other people.
100%. I wrote like a short. I started to write a lot on Medium, and I wrote a really short essay about how to create something unique. Most people, let's use newsletter growth as an example. Like the way it works now is people look at what others are doing to grow their newsletter, and they're doing the same thing. They're trying to do the same thing to grow their own newsletter. And what this does is it ends up like everyone is doing something different in the exact same way. So no one is special. Everyone is trying to be different in the exact same way. So what you mentioned, like trying to distill this into a concept. So what I wrote about in the article is you need to follow 3 steps, and you need to take them separately to create something unique. First, you need to consume. That's when you watch or you listen to podcasts, you watch YouTube videos, you scroll Twitter, you read articles. Like you read about what other people are doing, and you need to do that in many different areas. If you want to create a unique newsletter, you can't just read about how to create a newsletter, how to grow a newsletter, because then you will only do what others are doing, like the exact same thing. So that's the first step. And then when after that step, you need to let that sit, like brew in your head, not try to force yourself to come up with something unique, but just trust that if you consume a lot of quality content and you just leave it, go to the gym, take a hike, spend time with friends, just do nothing. That's the second step. And if you do that, you will end up with the third step, which is to create. So after like leaving all of this information in your brain, in your subconscious for a period of time, not thinking about it at all, your brain will connect all these ideas. There's a system I'm trying to learn to use called Zettelkasten. This is a German system where you like save ideas, but you don't save them in a list. You save them. It's like a paper system from the 50s where you had like small notes and you put them in a box. And basically in this system, you're not sorting them one after another, but you create connections from one card to another, and they don't have to be I have that book, but I haven't read it yet. But yeah, that's exactly that. So you don't connect ideas one after another. You connect them in ways that's not obvious, and that's what your brain will do when you just leave it for a while. So then when you've gone through that step, you can sit down and define those ideas, or whenever an idea pops into your head, you write it down. And when you then sit down to create something, you will come up with stuff that isn't what everyone else is doing, because you've let your brain connect ideas from completely different worlds.
I think what's also helpful is, I think there's a lot of value in sprints and doing things quickly, like motivation strikes, getting things done. But then a lot of value comes from doing the same thing for a long time and having a very long-term perspective, because that's when it's like everything that you've been consuming, rather than seeing like this project as a very finite one-time thing where it's like, I'm going to consume a bunch of information about this, and then I'm going to learn about this, and then I'm going to, a few weeks later, put it all together in this. It's kind of something that's more continuous. That's like, for the next several years, I'm going to be working on, this is going to be a component of the thing that I'm working on. And then all the things that you consume during that same period of time just kind of become relevant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, when you start thinking about creativity and creating something unique in that way, as a cycle, you'll come up with really, really cool stuff. I've been trying to, during these 2 months where I've been working really hard, it's taken 2 months for me to get where I am now. I have all these ideas. I just basically put them in a document or write them down. And every day I come up with something that will move those into like closer to being like a concept, something unique, and something that I understand. So I like you were saying, something that I could be writing on for a long period of time from now on. And I actually had just a few days ago, I realized I was eating breakfast, and I realized while doing that and doing nothing but eating breakfast, I wasn't listening to anything or reading anything. I realized something has clicked in my head. I've been thinking about this cohort for so long, trying to figure out the concept, and it just clicked. And I sat down and I wrote the landing page, and it just all made sense. So it's a cool way. It's interesting when you realize that's the best way of coming up with something creative and something unique, is to basically do nothing.
It's a cool process. I want to, maybe we'll do a few more newsletter questions at the end. I do want to ask about your experience with your remote tiny home that you built yourself.
Yeah. So long story short, I moved to Gothenburg, where I live now, which is the second largest city in Sweden. And I realized a few weeks ago that there's no local newsletter in Gothenburg, even though it's got like 600,000 people. So that's another project I'm starting next year. But I moved to Gothenburg 4 years ago to move in with my now ex, and I started building a tiny home, a tiny house on wheels.
I'm looking at Gothenburg on the map.
Just when COVID hit, 2020, I started building a tiny home on wheels on a trailer for us. And to me, or to us, COVID was a great thing when it comes to that part of my life, because we were able to rent this hangar where they usually had huge concerts. But because of COVID, they couldn't have any events. So we rented that place for like $100 per month. So Gothenburg is a very, very rainy and windy city. And we started building at the end of the year. And we built all through the worst months of the year. But we were able to do that inside. So we had like everything. We brought a lot of friends over and we were building. So fast forward, we broke up a year and a half ago. And I had always been like the one who really wanted to build the tiny house. And I was the one doing all the planning, organizing all the building sprints, everything like that. So I was more than happy to take over the house, the entire thing. This last a year ago, I basically started again or continued to build, and I finished the house enough to move into it, because we were building it in the middle of Gothenburg, and I had to move it from there, and I also had to find a place to live, because I was living with my ex and I moved out, and I was kind of like jumping around between friends' apartments and renting for a few months. And that would have been okay when I was 20, but when I'm like turning 40, I wanted a place to myself. So I found this spot 20 minutes by bike outside of Gothenburg, 10 minutes by car, where I moved my house. It's basically a field on a small farm. And I moved the house there. I spent the summer building, finishing it so much that I could like live there comfortable. I have the kitchen. I have a really good, nice place to sleep. I have electricity. It's warm. I don't have a shower or a toilet yet. I have the toilet just close by, just 2 minutes from walking distance. I shower at the gym, which is really good because I end up going to the gym a lot.
That's a good point.
It's very good plan. So yeah, and It was a really good timing because, as I mentioned, I haven't been working a lot the last year, so I didn't earn very much money. I had a lot of money saved from before, so I didn't have there wasn't a problem or any stress. But it was a really good thing because I pay around $150 per month in rent, and it's a 10-minute drive from the city, and I could just be there, do some work on the house, do some work on the computer, and just go to the gym, relax, and basically just in a way heal myself and find my way back to creativity, find my way back to doing work I like. So yeah, that's where I am right now. I have a tiny home that is 3 times 9 meters, and I'm not even going to try to convert that to American.
It's like 10 by 30 feet,
Yeah,
roughly.
yeah, it is. So it's everything I need. The interesting part is I live basically on a field. It's a beautiful view. My closest neighbors are all the convicted and currently incarcerated sex offenders in Sweden, because I live just next to a prison. So I think it's called like this, the sex bunker, because all the convicted sex offenders goes there because they want to keep them separated from other criminals, because usually they don't like that kind of people. So yeah, that's where I am right now. That's where I live. Not at this very moment. I'm at my mom's place now over Christmas, but otherwise, I live in a self-built tiny home with my dog.
That's so cool. What's been the best benefit of that in your experience? Because a lot of people, it goes in and out, I'd say, of being trendy, or at least being in and out of my radar, the desire to do van life or tiny home life. What have you enjoyed about it the most?
I mean, the very best part, especially as I've been sick for a while, I've had a really hard time working. I didn't have to worry about that because my living cost is basically $300 per month. I have the phone, I have insurance, I have the rent, which I pay every 6 months. So when that is paid, it feels like I'm living free. I own my car. I have no debt. I paid off my student debt this spring, and that was nothing compared to what I understand the debts in your student debt in America can be. I think my total was like $10,000, and I paid that off over 20 years. So the best part about this that really helped me, that gave me the opportunity to let my basically my work come to me, or I was able to come back to work. I was able to figure out what I wanted to do because I didn't have to work because my expenses were so low. So that's definitely the best part. Basically living for nothing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've had an interesting ride, and it's going to be. Sounds like next year is going to be even more interesting yet again.
Yeah, I think it will. What I have to do now is, because I usually do my energy and my focus is like a pendulum. So I've been at this side for so long doing nothing, and then when I I see that I have energy, that I have focus, I just swing to the other end of the spectrum. So I like go all in. And I've launched, I think I'm working on 6 or 7 newsletters. Just like besides what I'm doing for clients, like my own newsletters, I have 5 or 6 or 7, and a dozen other ideas, projects. So I just need to find a balance, because I don't want to end up in the same situation again where I burn myself out, which is really, really easy. I've been longing for so long to have the energy and the focus that I have now. So I just need to make sure I take care of myself. I want to be very cautious about my energy, how I use it, where it is, what's giving me energy and what's stealing my energy. So yeah, it's amazing. It feels amazing, and I love being here. And I want to make sure I don't end up on the other side again. I'm seeing a therapist now, which is really good. I'm doing some other things, and I'm doing a lot of work around it. Also writing in private. I'm writing a book about mental health for creators, for entrepreneurs.
Oh, interesting.
I've created a page, but I haven't shared it, and I've listed all these topics and questions. And whenever I come up with an idea, I just sit down in the morning and write an article. And I'm not sharing it publicly yet, because I don't want to. That's usually what I do. I have an idea and I just put it out there
immediately,
and then I feel like shit when I'm not delivering. So this time, just letting that be my own product.
Okay.
I'm doing it on my own time. So yeah, that's another product I'll be sharing in 2024.
Awesome. Well, Jens, I'm really appreciative of you for sharing so much on this podcast, giving a deep insight into how you got where you are and the different things that are going on in your life. A very, I'd say, real and honest account of what's going on and what's coming up in the future. So I appreciate that a ton. I think a lot of people try to put out a very fake version of themselves, and I really didn't get any of that from you. So that's really cool. I would like for you to shout out one of your current newsletters that you think is great and worth reading, and then one newsletter of someone else's that you really enjoy.
Yeah, so the one newsletter that's kind of tying everything together, if you want to know everything I do, is Hotmail. So thehot.email, which is my main newsletter. And then I kind of fell in love with one newsletter the other day, which was really, really good, which is the one from Mark Manson, the guy who wrote
The Subtle Art.
Yeah, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And it's a very short one, but I realized how good he is at including the readers. He's basically tying today's newsletter with the newsletter from last week by sharing what people replied. And then he asks another question in this newsletter, and he shares that in the upcoming weeks. So I've been reading a lot of those and trying to figure out how he does that, because he's doing two things really, really well. I mean, he's not doing anything. Yeah, he's not doing anything in a bad way, but two things really stood out when I was reading his emails. First of all, how he makes everything super actionable. He's speaking in, so another concept I love is like speaking in aha moments, where you're able to like give people these wow moments like realizing something from a sentence, and you just change their way of looking at something. So he's really good at speaking in aha moments, like explaining a concept and changing the way you think about something. And at the same time, he is making it very actionable by adding a prompt after each section, like, hey, think about this for the next week, or here's one thing to do for the in the upcoming week. So that's what he's really, really good at. Make people take action. And the other thing is the thing that I've been missing in the newsletter world, and that's the community part.
Yeah.
Newsletters is a one-way communication in one way. Sure, you can reply, you can get back, but it's like I send an email to 5,000 people, some people reply, and that's it. But he's including those conversations in his email. So that's definitely something I would steal for my own projects.
I like it. Cool. Well, you're on Twitter as well. I'll have that linked below. And I'm excited to keep in touch and see how everything materializes. So appreciate a ton for coming on the show and sharing everything.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun, man.